Hello, I'm Father Mitch Paquin. Welcome to EWTN Live. We bring you guests from around the world. Tonight, we'll talk about how anti-Christian forces have gained great power and influence over virtually every major institution in America. And at the same time, there is no better time for faithful Catholics to be around and come to the defense of the truth of the gospel. Now, before we get to that conversation, we want to speak briefly with the General Manager of EWTN Radio, Mr. Jack Williams, about what's new with EWTN Radio. Jack, what do you have for us?
Well, actually, we're going to talk about something that's old with EWTN Catholic Radio. I want to talk about our flagship show, EWTN's Open Line.
Yes.
It airs every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It encores at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we have a different host every day of the week. But it's the same host each particular day of the week, depending upon which week it is. Are you confused yet?
Yeah, this sounds like a riddle.
It's an Abbott and Costello routine. Yeah, there you go. So on Mondays, our host is Father John Trigilio, who is from the Diocese of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He's currently in charge of pastoral formation for the seminarians at Mount St. Mary's. On Tuesday, we have Father Wade Menezes, and Father John talks about just general apologetics questions. Father Wade Menezes joins us on Tuesdays. He talks faith, family, and fellowship. Wednesdays, we have a really dicey guy.
Yes, be careful.
This Jesuit named Father Mitch Pacwa, who talks church teaching, ancient languages, and even canon law, even though his canon law formation was horrible.
Yes. Well, don't let these things stop you if you're ignorant. Go on.
On Thursdays, we have Dominican Father Brian Milady from Portland, Oregon, who's very familiar to EWTN's viewers, many series he's done with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. And on Friday, we have our very own Vice President of Theology, Mr. Colin Donovan. So they take your phone calls all hour long with any of the questions that you have. Talk theology, obviously, on Friday with Colin. And we've launched a brand new campaign to promote EWTN's Open Line, and we're calling it, during the summertime when baseball's in session, right? We're calling it EWTN's Lineup of Heavy Hitters. And I think you see that up on the screen there. You guys have never looked better. That is the most athletic group of radio hosts I have ever seen in my entire life. And we want to make sure that everybody tunes in, not just during the summer, but all year long. And I know you have a good time doing the show every Wednesday.
Yes, I do.
And it's very beneficial to our listeners. We have full phone lines every day of the week. And we just want to really kind of give a plug for people who maybe have watched it in the past, or maybe people who didn't know it was on during the day. Or they can even catch the encore. And I've even got something you can do. You can listen to the show at 2 p.m. when it's live. You can call in. You can ask Father Mitch a question. He can pontificate on the answer to your question, and then you can tune back in at 10 p.m. Eastern Time and listen to yourself ask Father Mitch the question. Isn't that a great idea?
Shazam. That's pretty good. All right, well, that's a good thing. Thanks, Jack. And Jack, of course, is there running herd on me, make sure I don't get out of control. All right, we'll be back in a couple of minutes with tonight's guest, so please stay with us. Welcome back. Our guest tonight is the president of the Center for Family and Human Rights. That's a nonpartisan, nonprofit research institute dedicated to reestablishing a proper understanding of the dignity of the human person. And even with all that's going on in the world today, he claims that it is time to stand up for our Catholic faith. So please welcome the author of a new book called Under Siege. No finer time to be a faithful Catholic, Mr. Austin Ruse. Austin, welcome.
Thank you, Father. I am delighted to be here.
You know, one of the things that I have in mind with your book are the Knights of St. John in Malta, when they were just a few thousand guys and they're surrounded by tens of thousands of Turkish invaders, and they held them off and defeated them and prepared the way for the Battle of Lepanto later on. And I think of your impression of Catholicism at this time, when we have not Turkish forces, but we have all kinds of other forces coming against us and our whole society. And so we are called to be. Does that fit as an image?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have been to the cathedral of the Knights of Malta there in Valletta, and it is a remarkable structure built by strong, brave men. The floor is gold, and it covers the graves of all of these Knights of Malta who died over the years in Malta. And we look back upon, people like that with great envy, because they fought a desperate fight and they didn't give up. And that's one of the themes in my book. I mean, we look back with great envy of certain generations that were given great tasks to do. You look at the early church, you look at the founding of America, you look at the Civil War, you look at the Second World War. You know, it was a difficult task given to a particular generation to carry through, and they did. And that is us, and that's one thing I want to get across.
And that's hard to understand when you're in the midst of it. It's hard to see, the importance of what you're standing up against. But first of all, let's take a look at this. What do you see as the besieging forces that are against us? What do you see as the problem forces that we have to contend with?
Well, I mean, they're myriad, they're enormous. I would say the central theme is from the sexual left, what I also call the pelvic left. That is people who do not much like the church. This started in the French Revolution. You know, they came after the church and they came after the family because the church and the family stood in the way of people's true pleasure. And so this is still going on. It has picked up speed. In the book, I start in the early 1960s with the Bible reading decision of the Supreme Court that said that the object and purpose of government had to be secular. In the modern parlance, that means without God, without religion.
As a matter of fact, if I may, I would even go one step earlier to the decision in 1947 that's put into the Supreme Court that there's a wall of separation between church and state that was then used in that case to say we have to have that wall.
Well, a proper understanding of the wall of separation, which certainly didn't appear in the Constitution, is that it's supposed to protect us. It's supposed to protect religious believers from the state. And what they have done in these decisions in 1947 and 1963 is they've done a jujitsu on us. And they now use the separation of church and state, so-called, against us. So that if you want to build a cross on public land, or you want to have a creche in the public square, that is the establishment of religion. I argue in the book that, as a matter of fact, what happened in 1963 and then going forward is the establishment of a new state church, and it's not
exactly
us.
Right. See, that's one of the things that this took over, and it's no accident that the author of that decision in 47 was a Mason, strongly and formerly a member of the Ku Klux Klan, who was staunchly committed to a Masonic vision of religion, and that meant a religion that is not about doctrine as much as about ethics and reason. And Hugo Black from Alabama here is the originator of this.
There's a building named after him downtown.
Yeah, a federal court building, amazingly. And this, and staunch anti-Catholic, he opened his mind and heart toward African Americans, but never to Catholics. And this secular religion is what we see developing. Tell us more.
Well, as I said, in 1963, it was the Bible reading case. 1962 was prayer in school. You know, and it was an anodyne prayer. You know, Father God, please send your blessings upon our country, our teachers, our parents, that kind of thing. It was written by a priest, a minister, and a rabbi. It went through 13 judges, 11 of whom supported the prayer in public schools before it got to the Supreme Court. But the following year was the Bible reading case, where they said that the Bible could not be read in school. And that's where they said that the object and purpose of government must be secular. A couple of years later, what happens? It's the decision on contraception for married couples. A couple of years after that, it was the decision on contraception for singles. A few years after that, it was what? Roe v. Wade. A few years after that, there were decisions on constitutionalizing certain homosexual acts.
And even before that, the prohibition of any showing of the Ten Commandments. In 1980, you can't display the Ten Commandments. A lot of schools had them.
Right.
And you couldn't even show the Ten Commandments.
That's
I
right.
even like pointing out, because I saw this in Chicago, they got rid of the Bible and prayer in 62, 63.
Mm-hmm.
And by 68, they had replaced the Bible and prayer with metal detectors at the door to catch some of the knives and guns that people were bringing in.
You know, the thread of civilization is thin and can be broken. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll digress for 1 second. I recently watched a documentary about Woodstock 99. I don't know if you knew there was such a thing.
No.
400,000 kids
I missed both of them.
in upstate New York, and it turned into absolute chaos. The thread of civilization was broken over a 48-hour period in upstate New York at Woodstock 99.
Even more so than in 68.
Substantially more. It's a shocking documentary. But, you know, so back to what we were talking about. When all of this is removed from the public school, what is it replaced with? In the little public school a mile from my house, they're teaching religious dogma, not ours. They're teaching that little boys can be born in the wrong body. They're teaching children that they have to recite a certain dogma, that is to say the proper pronouns. This is the new state religion that is that has replaced what used to be prayer in school, Bible reading, and things like that.
And I think there is an element of religious fervor with the environmental issues. That shows up there. And now in the issues of race and the new racism, that these are also giving as dogmas that certain people are necessarily born oppressors and others are born oppressed. And despite what you see, that's a dogma.
Well, absolutely. You know, there were scenes last year during the beginning of the racial reckoning where streets full of soccer moms in yoga pants are on their knees doing a call and response with Black Lives Matter leaders. This was a liturgy. When you saw detectives down on their knees and shining the shoes of African Americans, that this is a new faith, and all of these are together. You know, in my research on the environmental question, Alexis de Tocqueville in 1840 said that Americans will eventually have to decide between pantheism and Catholicism. He didn't say pantheism and Protestantism, he said Catholicism.
What do you mean by pantheism? Explain what that word means.
Well, it's where you place the sacred, and modern-day environmentalists place the sacred in the temporal sphere, in the trees and the grass and the air and the water.
That everything
and that's what that
is
means.
God. That's what pantheos means.
That's right.
Everything is God.
That's right.
So then the environment is the sacred environment, sacred trees and all these other things.
That's right.
Becomes a religious sacrament.
That's right.
To have Earth Day close to Easter.
I remember the first Earth Day. We picked up garbage on the hill near my junior high. Yeah, absolutely. So all of these things together form here's a question. I sometimes, the little joke that I make, try telling somebody that you don't recycle and you'll see what happened to the Albigensians in the 13th century. People are absolutely shocked if you say, I don't recycle, because it's a sacrament.
Yep.
Like abortion is a sacrament, like contraception is a sacrament.
And it's not, some people, oh, now you're going crazy saying that abortion is a sacrament. Not so. There was a theologian named Mary Daly who actually designed a ritual to celebrate abortion as the eighth sacrament.
Yeah.
She was Catholic in her background, but I think forsook it. But she wrote a book describing the liturgy of the sacrament of abortion.
Yeah.
We cannot underestimate your point that this is religious.
Well, it is religious. And, and as I write about in the book, I mean, all of these people who are unchecking the Christian box on polls and checking the none, I'm none of the above. They're not nuns. They didn't leave for nothing. They left for something. And I argue in the book that we live in a profoundly religious age. And you see it in the environmental movement, you see it in the woke movement, you see it among the sexual revolutionaries.
As a matter of fact, I would even add with the movement for Black Lives Matter, that is strongly rooted in Yoruba ancestral worship according to the foundresses of Black Lives Matter. That even their invocation of people who have died is part of Yoruba, which is West African religion. It's a very religious component. They do religious dance, and this is part of Black Lives Matter. It is very religious, but it's not Christian religion at all.
You can't be nothing. You can't be nothing. So when they uncheck that box, they go and they become something else. One of the people I write about in the book is the actress Gwyneth Paltrow and the whole wellness movement. You may not know, but the wellness movement is $1 trillion a year industry. Isn't that shocking?
Yeah.
And it is deeply religious. Gwyneth Paltrow has a show on Netflix. Her company is called Goop, by the way, Goop. And it's $250 million a year business. And she has this show on Netflix. And I watched several of these episodes. And one of these episodes, she had on a chiropractor. And this man had people lay on these tables, and he moved his hands over their bodies and under their bodies, and they writhed, and almost like they were having an exorcism. It's really a sight to behold. And this is profoundly religious. He said, and she believes, and wellness is about this, that the world is made up of energy, that a small portion of the universe is made up of matter. The rest is energy. We come from energy. We're going to return to energy. This is deeply religious.
In fact, that is the doctrine that permeated the New Age movement of the 80s and into the 90s.
That's right.
I wrote about that in my book, Catholics in the New Age. And
It's even gotten bigger.
It's gone less odd and more mainstream.
Absolutely mainstream.
Now, I like the country western song that says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And one of the points that you're making is that Catholics who stand for their Catholicism won't fall for this.
Yeah.
They won't buy into the sacrament of abortion and euthanasia. They won't go into environment. Protecting the environment is very important. It's a good thing. But it's not a religion. And it has to be science and not an act of faith.
That's right.
But we need our Catholic faith to stand up again. And we don't see with our Catholic politicians. They give in to this secular religion. We have to stand up for it. Would that be a fair summary of what you're trying to say here?
Well, I would say that and the reason that the title of the book is No Finer Time to Be a Faithful Catholic is because the faithful is such an important part of that. And what that means is, and and people are asking, what are we supposed to do? You ought to try to go to Mass every day. You ought to try to say the Rosary every day. You ought to spend some time in mental prayer every day. You ought to be utterly fearless in letting people know what you believe in terms of your faith. You should be utterly fearless about that and vocal about that. Now, on political issues, you might want to be a little bit cautious.
Let me just add one other thing, too.
Yeah.
Get to confession once a month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Don't, in this age, we can't neglect that element either.
Weekly confession is a remarkable thing. Even if you're, confessing venial sins or imperfections, there are graces in that confessional which redound to people at that moment somewhere who need them. Somebody who's dying, for instance.
And it helps people avoid that temptation into sin.
That's right.
It keeps you away from committing sin.
That's right. So all of these things are things that people ought to be doing. Now, as you edge into the political realm, it gets a little bit more dangerous these days because of the LGBT issue, primarily because of that. But there are ways that people can. This is one of the arguments I make in my book and in my everyday life is you may not let this cup pass from you. Everybody has something that they have to do other than going to Mass, other than raising their children. They have to do something about what's going on in the larger society, even if it's writing a check, even if it's writing a monthly check. Find the pro-life group that you like the most and send them $10 every month. It means a lot. Find a group that's fighting for marriage or fighting against the transgender agenda. Send them a check every month. Go down to the school board meeting and pat somebody on the back who just made a great speech, or the one school board member who is standing up for the good, the true, and the beautiful. Some people can, like you and I do, charge the sniper's nest. Other people have to be a little bit more cautious because of the work that they do. A friend of mine that I know is watching right now is in real estate. And in real estate, the overarching association of realtors have let realtors know that even in their private life, if they say something that's offensive, they can have their license removed. This is the threat that people are under.
And this is also speaking to the religious component. If you commit heresy, you will be punished.
That's right. Unmercifully.
Unmercifully, because that's another element of this. The battle cry that we're hearing from this secular religion, this new state religion, for justice is a justice divorced from mercy.
That's right. That's right.
And we want justice. We also know we're fellow sinners.
That's right.
And we want to get mercy. We also know we have to get it. For only the ones who show mercy to others get mercy. That's in the Beatitudes.
Yeah. One of the people that I wrote about in a previous book called Fake Science is a guy named Roger Pilka, who was an environmental scientist at the University of Colorado, and he agreed with every jot and tittle of catastrophic man-made global warming, except he said the reason that there's more damage from storms is because we're building much more right up to the edge of the sea. And they're generally big, beautiful houses. So when a storm comes through, they get destroyed. But he said there's been no increase of storms. They called him a science denier. They called him a climate denier. He had to leave the environmental movement because he differed with them on this one little bitty piece of information. They are unforgiving.
Unforgiving, and quite frankly, I've been saying for years that there was more freedom of speech and thought in a medieval university than what we see in contemporary science and contemporary academic life. Galileo got away with murder compared to what your friend was able to do. These are the new, if they think the church had a tough time with Galileo, which meant, look, Galileo, you got to stay home and shut up and stop making fun of the Pope because he's calling him bad names.
Yeah.
And that was his punishment. And later on, it was shown to be correct. But now, the Galileos are your friend and others.
Do you know who the new priesthood is in the new established church?
I have no idea.
Anybody who wears a robe, a judge, an
Yeah.
academic, a scientist. And the new faithful go to them for their encyclicals. And they hand down their dogma. And people absolutely believe, if you don't agree with that, you don't believe in science. So that's who the new priesthood is.
Yep. And we're seeing, we should pay attention to what happened recently with COVID.
Yeah.
If the way that the enforcement of the new inquisition called Facebook
Yeah.
and Twitter, that these were the enforcers, that the Inquisition didn't punish anybody. They just handed you over to the secular arm. Now, if you disagree with the state religion, then you're handed over to the Twitter and Facebook for elimination.
One of the things I wrote about in the book, is the enforcement of the new faith by corporations. A few years
Yes.
ago, I was in touch with some employees of J.P. Morgan Chase, the fourth largest financial institution in the world. And they had sent out a survey of all the employees of J.P. Morgan Chase around the world. And one of the questions was, are you LGBT or an ally? There was no other choice. And they were deeply worried that if they did not answer that the right way, they could lose a promotion, they could lose their job, they might be re-educated. These are the new enforcers of the new orthodoxy.
What do we do? That's going to be the question. What do faithful Catholics do in this fine, or the best of times to be a faithful Catholic? What do we do?
Well, first of all, as we talked about earlier, going to Mass as frequently as you possibly can, going to confession, saying the Rosary, raising your family. But like I said, going down to the school board and patting somebody on the back, sending a check to a pro-life or pro-family group that's doing good work. Stop using the language of the other side. Do you remember in the Korean War, when Douglas MacArthur initiated the Incheon landing, where he went around the invading North Koreans and came in behind them? I think we have to go back to the time when they started forcing us to say certain words. I wrote a column at Crisis Magazine, and the headline was, "I no longer say chair when I mean chairman." So you can begin to take back language that they have taken from us. I say that there are halos hanging from the lowest branches of the trees. All you need to do is reach up and grab one. In order to make the world a better place, you don't have to do all that much.
I think another element for those of you who are parents is to let your children read primary sources of good and beautiful literature. Literature is being eliminated. And give your students, my students, give them good literature. Give them primary sources so that they learn how to think. This is going to be another key element. They're not going to be head nodders that just go along with this, but they really know important data and can explain that and use reason. We have forces saying Aristotle is out because he teaches logic and ethics, and that logic is out. It's masculinist and masculine oppression. Correct answers in mathematics is out. All of these things, we have to do the opposite and teach correct mathematics, good grammar, and beautiful literature.
That's right. We sacrifice greatly, as do many families in our area, to send our children to a remarkable school called Oakcrest, which is run by Opus Dei in Northern Virginia. There's the girls' school Oakcrest and the boys' school the Heights, and they are reading the great books
Yeah.
They're teaching them, how to think, and the teachers love them dearly, and you can tell.
Yep.
And so we are preparing our children, Lucy and Gigi, as well as we can to prepare them for what's going to be coming fairly soon.
And of course, sending them to colleges is a landmine, not to mention something to break your bank.
We're aiming them toward UD.
There you go. Where I used to teach.
That's right.
Good idea. We are going to come back in a couple of minutes. We want to get some of your questions and your comments. And if you want to find out more, you can go online to the Center for Family and Human Rights. It is c-fam.org. c-fam.org, and find out more about specific issues, as well as get this great book, Under Siege. Stay with us. We'll be listening for your questions and comments. All right, I believe we have a phone call already. Is it John?
Yes,
John, where are you calling from?
Jackson, Tennessee.
Wonderful. And good to, I love Tennessee. And what is your question?
Well, as an Eastern Orthodox question, I was just thinking maybe in this day and age, instead of just Catholics only being under siege, aren't all Christians being under siege, especially with the rapid growth of Islam and secularization?
John, let's take a look at that question. What do you have to say about that, Austin?
I think that that's a remarkable question, and I deal with it in my book. I've given a talk called No Finer Time to Be a Faithful Catholic for about 7 or 8 years, and from that came this book. And I've given it to largely evangelical audiences precisely because there's never been a finer time to be a faithful Christian, full stop.
Yep.
And one of the great signs that we see in the world today is the great coming together of his Christian children. And this happened primarily in the pro-life movement. It would be odd to me if there were not evangelicals cheek by jowl with me in my work at the United Nations.
Yep.
So, and we owe a great deal to evangelicals for keeping the faith on the boil in this country. When I was converting, I used to watch an evangelical preacher in Farragut Square in Washington, D.C., and I was very moved at how brave he was. So, and he was taking on all comers. He didn't know that he was converting me to the Catholic Church,
yeah.
And I don't think that he would have necessarily minded. So there's this great coming together of his Christian children, and that absolutely includes the Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah,
coming for all of us. They're coming for all of us.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the issues, John, I think, and I think you'd agree, the Catholic Church is the big kid on the block.
Yeah.
We're almost 25% of the population,
Yeah.
At least nominally. And if they can get us under their thumb, of course the other churches will be easier to deal with. So all of us have to be alert to that. And I think that we have our differences, to be sure. But I think that we can put those discussions in abeyance as together we stand shoulder to shoulder
that's right.
to fight for life, for our faith, prayer, and being able to be religious in the public forum.
That's right.
This is something we have to do very much.
Fighting against the new state church.
Yep. And there are forces in the government that strongly want the churches to not have influence.
Yeah.
We have another caller. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Father Mitch. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. What can we do for you this fine evening? First of all, where are you from?
I'm from upstate New York.
Wonderful. And what's your question?
The other day I was watching a show that had William Lawler. He was talking about Contagious Faith, the book he wrote. And it brought up in me again all the anger and resentment I felt when the church closed down for the pandemic. I decided to write a letter to the bishop basically saying I didn't understand why he allowed the government to do this, and weren't we supposed to stand up for religious liberty? Some of the churches or dioceses did this, and the government backed down. Basically said, you expect me to support you, and I do support you. What about us? Watching TV, watching the Mass on TV did not fulfill me. And that isn't our spiritual health as important as our physical? And I was wondering, one, what do you think? And is there any other way? The thing that passes through my mind is that evil happens because good people don't stand up and do something, and I know I'm one of them. I don't do enough.
Okay, so how do we stand up to this? But
Well, let me take
Linda
it.
suggested we stand up, and she was talking about Philip Lawler's book, Contagious Faith.
Yeah, I was on his podcast. He's a real hero.
Yeah.
Let me take it away from the current issue of the pandemic, and talk about the question of God can bring good out of any evil, and so what has he brought out of the attack on life, faith, and family? One of them is the great coming together of his Christian children, something we've never seen since the Reformation. The other thing, and this is going to sound counterintuitive to a lot of folks, and that is the bishops have been remarkable in many ways. In 2004, when John Kerry ran for president, and he was an unfaithful Catholic, 35 bishops publicly criticized him for his dissents from Catholic teaching. A couple of years later, Obama went to Notre Dame to get an honorary degree. 80 bishops spoke out in opposition to his appearance there. A couple of years after that, there was this great debate about Obamacare and whether abortion was going to be in Obamacare. Contraception, 200 bishops spoke out. They were counting on the pre-sex scandal to silence the bishops, and this has not happened. I mean, look at the vote that they recently took on a document on the Eucharist. It was 75%. It should have been more, but 75% voted in favor of a document that very well could come close to a justification for withholding communion from the President of the United States. So, yes, we wish the bishops would do more. We wish that they hadn't caved in so rapidly vis-a-vis the government on the pandemic, but they're doing a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for. The teachings of the church have not changed.
And I think that we have to also, as lay people and as clergy, stand up to say, look, we are not withholding communion because of some political party adherence, interest, or concern.
Yeah, that's right.
This is about, I was once on one of the cable news channels, and they were criticizing the Bishop of Rhode Island for withholding communion from a pro-abortion politician. And they wanted to make it the church crossing the line between church and state.
That's right. That's right.
And I said, no, this is not about the church crossing on the line, about the wall of separation. This is about him bringing his filthy morality to our Holy Communion table. That is the issue.
And giving scandal.
It's a big scandal.
Yeah.
A big scandal to profess yourself to be a Catholic and then to be in favor of paying for and supporting the dismemberment of babies in the womb. This is not acceptable.
That's right.
This is joining up with Herod and his killing of the children in Bethlehem.
That's right.
And we have to say, look, if you politicians want to side with Herod, you have to reckon. We're going to side with Jesus Christ and the Holy Family.
That's right.
We have another caller. Hello, Patricia.
Hello, Father. I'm
Hi.
Patricia.
Where are you calling
from? California.
Oh, thank you for calling. And your question or comment?
Yes, my question is that I've been a Catholic all my life, but I consider myself kind of a new convert during COVID and watching EWTN, doing Bible study with you and Mother Angelica and the Mass and the Rosary and Divine Mercy, along with all the other shows that have brought us back home. I was one of the people that was going to Pride, all the Prides, Palm Springs, West Hollywood, Long Beach, because God loved everyone, and we need to teach everyone to love and accept everyone, because as a youngster, my friends were trying to commit suicide. People were beating them up because they were gay. And all I wanted to teach people was that we just needed to accept everyone and love everyone, and that my friends were not looking to change anyone. They just needed to be accepted and not to be beaten up.
Well, of course.
And now I feel that, that I've come into the truth, and I've lost a lot of my friends and family. And in teaching now I have adult children. I have taught my children that, that waving the gay banner was the way to live, because that was true love, quote unquote. And now that I'm really living in true love, in Jesus Christ's love, I want to know how I can talk to them.
Patricia, that's a very profound question.
You
wanna
know,
take that?
I have lost friends over these issues, lifelong friends who won't talk to me anymore over these issues. And quite frankly, I don't have an answer for her, because I don't have an answer for myself. When I engage people on social media, there's a lot of tussling and back and forth, I have found that finding common ground can be almost a waste of time, but finding common interests can break down barriers. I was on a thread on some blog and talking about the LGBT issue, and some guy was coming at me like crazy, and I was answering all his questions, and all of a sudden, in television there's a fourth wall. He broke the fourth wall. He turned to me as a human being and started talking to me about music. And all of a sudden, this guy, we were going hammer and tongs, and we didn't find common ground, but we found common interest, and it was a beautiful human moment. So sometimes you just got to put these issues aside and not try to convince them of how right you are on these issues, though the caller is absolutely right, but find common interests.
I think, too, if I can make a suggestion for you to contact a fellow Californian who is in the same position as you, has come out of the LGBTQ world, where he was almost killed by people in the homosexual, the gay porn industry. He was an actor who almost died. You can read his story. His name is Joseph Sciambra, Sciambra. Look him up online. And Patricia, he is a very good and compassionate man who maintains his contact in this world with a gentleness and a love that doesn't come into the preachiness, but rather waits until he finds people ready to hear about Christ. And I would recommend that you contact Joseph. He's got a website there, and you find him on the internet.
And he's on social
easily.
media.
Yep. And he's done some, I've told him, I'd rather go hunt alligators in South Louisiana than do what he does. I admire his courage.
Joe Sciambra goes to all of the pride marches in San Francisco wearing a T-shirt that says "Jesus loves gay men" and hands out rosaries.
Yep.
He's the most remarkable guy. I've sent
Yep.
him donations.
Yep.
I write about him in the book. I'm a little worried about him because he's feeling a little beaten down because
I
he
know.
can't get any traction with the bishops.
Right.
But he is a true inspiration. That's a fine piece of advice.
Yeah. Contact him. You may find a lot in common and a way to gently, faithfully, very lovingly develop a way to deal with this. And I understand the lack of traction. We have another caller. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Father Mitch. Michael from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Wonderful. Thank you for calling. And what is your question?
Yeah, Father Mitch, I was wondering, how do you conquer this sin of pornography, the worldwide sin in the whole world? You know how Our Lady of Fatima said a certain dress would offend the Lord in 1917, how it's rampant, and the internet and these gentlemen clubs and everywhere. Could you help me out, Father?
Sure. Well, first of all, you address this issue.
You know, I don't have any answers. What I describe in the book is how poisonous this aspect of the culture is. I write about a company in the book called MindGeek that most people haven't heard of, that gets more traffic than Amazon. And they are poisoning adults and children with the material that they put up on the internet. I don't have any answers on how people can break free of that. It is part of my description in the book of how we are under siege. I'm sure that there are places online where people can go for help, but I mean, it is among the most pernicious things happening in society today. And it's free.
Yeah. Here's a couple things I would recommend. First, to understand that pornography and marijuana are what I like to call light come-ons. My father was a used car salesman in Chicago. And you have a shill, you have a come-on. And you say, look, I've got a car. That's old. 2018 car for $100. And people come to flock into the place. First one in the place can buy it.
Right.
Well, it's always the guy who buys it is the mechanic.
Right.
That opens the door. He buys it.
Right.
Well, we sold it already, but we got another one for you.
Yeah.
So this is a come-on. And both marijuana and pornography are considered light come-ons. But then they get you hooked into other stuff. The free porn leads to pay for porn. And they make billions off of the porn they pay for, even though over 90% of porn is free. Right?
That's right.
And so you have to look at it as a satanic come-on that is working in people. A couple ways to deal with it in prayer. Pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet. And when you pray the chaplet for each invocation, have mercy on us and on the whole world, pray for any of the people that you're looking at. Pray for all those people who put themselves out there. Don't say, I got to fight again. No, pray for them. They don't have many people praying for them. But you also pray for yourself. Have mercy on us. Not on those porn people, on us. Secondly, you can go to a website, a Catholic website. I had them on the show. It's called Integrity Restored. Type that in on your computer. Integrity Restored. They have tremendous resources that are helping people to overcome the addiction to pornography. It's a great Catholic group over in the great state of Georgia, and you don't need voter ID to do it. Just get in there and go ahead and get in contact with Integrity Restored. And use confession frequently for the issue. Even if it's repeating the same thing, repeat it. And you know, these are, in terms of the industry, it'll just take people learning to have enough respect for other people, that you don't look at them that you don't have a right to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have a right to see these people. You don't have a right to use them, because that's what goes on. And to realize that and teach others about the inherent dignity of other folks is the antidote to what they're pushing. This is, eye candy. It's addictive, like marijuana saps people of their motivation. This saps people of motivation to relationship.
Both of them
marriage.
make you stupid.
Yep. Yeah,
Let me point something else out. This is such a target-rich environment that we live in for making the world a better place. These folks that you referred to in Georgia thought up this idea for helping people overcome this particular addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Lila Rose sat around her dorm room at UCLA and cooked up the idea of making phony phone calls to Planned Parenthood, and look where she is now. People, all you need to do, grab a broom, start sweeping. There's something for everybody to do.
Yep. And that's
And this is a big one.
Yep. It's a very big one. The destruction that goes on in people's lives. As a matter of fact, to keep in mind, anybody who's looking at porn, do you know if the people you're looking at are actually slaves? Because a big chunk of them are trafficked as slaves. You hear about slave trade in terms of African Americans? Slave trade is even bigger now than it was before the Civil War.
That's right.
Keep that in mind. 12 million people were brought from Africa to Americas between 1619 and 1809. 12 million. Today, there are 45 million sex slaves. If you're against slavery, start there. Thank you for being with us, Austin. Appreciate it very much. Again, you can go to the Center for Family and Human Rights by going to c-fam.org. And Austin's book is called Under Siege, No Finer Time to Be a Faithful Catholic. It is item number 30346 at EWTNRC.com. Thank you very much for being with us, and may the Lord bless all of you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you and strengthen you in your peace, in his peace, to serve him and change the society into his image. Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And remember, we can bring you Austin and all the other shows we do only because the network is brought to you by you. So please keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill, and we'll be able to pay all of our bills too. God bless you, and thank you for your support.